Listen to part of a conversation between a student and a professor.
Hello, Professor Diggs. Are you busy right now?
Not really, Mary. Come on in. What can I help you with?
I wanted to talk to you about the midterm writing assignment. The syllabus says that it's due on Friday of next week, but some of the other students swear that the deadline is in 2 weeks.
Oh, yes. I was going to make the announcement in class this week. I guess some of the students have already heard about the change in our lecture schedule.
So it's true then? Why the sudden change? I mean, weren't we supposed to spend this week reviewing the material to aid in the writing of our papers?
Yeah, we were. But now we are going to have a special speaker come in this Friday. So the deadline for the midterm report has been postponed 1 week.
And the speaker is?
Well, actually, Ashley Hampton, the internationally renowned sociologist. She happens to be coming to our campus this week. Her main purpose is to update the faculty of the Latin American Studies Department on her fieldwork.
Wow, Dr. Ashley Hampton herself. How did you convince her to speak to our class?
She owed me a favor from before, so I've asked her to give a lecture to our class this Friday on her most recent research. You know, she's doing work on the indigenous cultures of Brazil, which relates to our survey of South American cultural traditions. If you recall, a few weeks ago we were discussing how European colonization and, more recently, agricultural development put increasing pressure on indigenous tribes. So much so that some entire cultures, along with their languages, have disappeared.
Oh, yeah. And some people are working to try to save those traditions that remain.
Right. Well, anyway, Dr. Hampton is here to give an updated report of just how extensive the situation really is. It's a great opportunity to learn from first-hand testimony and also to find out some things about how we may be able to help preserve the cultural diversity that's still there.
That sounds really exciting. I'm sure the class will enjoy the opportunity to learn from an expert. And I'm sure they won't be complaining about the extended deadline either. You know, a lot of the students are really scrambling to get their papers done.
Yeah, I was aware of that. Well, I will announce the extension in class tomorrow. I hope the class will find Dr. Hampton's talk useful. Her speaking style tends to encourage her audience to think, and, well, she really tries to get people to actively participate in the discussions. And, frankly, the timing couldn't be better because, well, I'm thinking that perhaps the class can pick up some ideas from her lecture and incorporate them into their compositions.
Uh-huh. Well, will you be telling the class that it's Ashley Hampton giving the lecture?
I was kind of hoping it would be a surprise. Do you think you can keep from revealing her identity to the rest of the class?
Oh, no problem. I promise I won't tell a single soul.
Well, then, I'll see you tomorrow in class. Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer. 1. Why does the student go to see the professor? Two. Why does the professor postpone the deadline for the midterm? Three. According to the conversation, what topic will the special speaker discuss in class? 4. What does the professor imply about the guest speaker? Listen again to a part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
That sounds really exciting. I'm sure the class will enjoy the opportunity to learn from an expert. And I'm sure they won't be complaining about the extended deadline either. You know, a lot of the students are really scrambling to get their papers done.
5. What does the student mean when she says this?
You know, a lot of the students are really scrambling to get their papers done.
Listen to part of a lecture in a zoology class.
In our previous lecture, we discussed some of the ways that animals adapt to the conditions of the habitats where they live. Today, I plan to look at a unique animal, the polar bear. What's so unique about this animal? Well, in an environment that is so inhospitable, the Arctic, the polar bear has adapted in ways that are really pretty ingenious. So, how did the polar bear wind up in the Arctic in the first place? Scientists believe that the polar bear, or Ursus maritimus, its scientific name, evolved from the predatory brown bear around 200,000 years ago. It seems the Ice Age forced the bears to live in an environment where temperatures plummeted to minus 45 degrees Celsius. Well, those bears had to adapt to the cold, and scientists say they did. They evolved an insulating layer of fat or blubber, and they packed on this layer by devouring up to 100 pounds of seal fat at one sitting. This layer helps prevent heat loss. Actually, polar bears have more problems with overheating than they do with the cold. They quickly overheat when they run. And speaking of running, the polar bear's extra wide feet helps them distribute their weight efficiently on the fragile sea ice and swim in the Arctic ice waters. Okay, now I'm thinking, how come the color of their fur changed? Well, what exactly is the color of a polar bear's fur? Most people would say it's white, but it's actually pigment-free, colorless. It only looks white because the clear strands scatter the sun's rays. Except at the San Diego Zoo a few years back, their polar bear's fur turned green for a while because of the algae that got trapped in the hollow shafts of their fur. But anyway, there's some debate over why the polar bear's fur is the color it is. In one camp, people say that the fur serves as camouflage for hunting. But other people argue that polar bears hunt mainly in the Arctic winter, which of course is dark much of the time, so there's no need for camouflage. They say that the fur evolved to help keep them warm in the winter. Well, both arguments carry some weight. Although the Arctic winter days are mostly dark, there are several months when polar bears can hunt in some hours of daylight. I kind of fall into the second camp, though. You see, the clear strands allow the sunlight to penetrate through to the black skin. This heat gets trapped and stored by the fat and fur. Actually, you might find this hard to believe, but the polar bear's insulation system is so efficient at trapping heat that in infrared photographs, the only visible heat escaping from their bodies is the puff of air caused by their breath. They experience almost no heat loss. Now, polar bears are active the entire year, unlike brown bears that curl up in caves during the winter season. But it might surprise you to know that they do in fact hibernate, but not during the winter. And it's a special kind of hibernation called walking hibernation. You see, in wintertime, there is no shortage of food. But summer is a real problem because the ice melts, and this reduces the habitat polar bears have in which to search for food. To cope with this, polar bears have developed the ability to slow their metabolism down by walking slowly for extended periods. During these periods, they draw energy from their stores of fat. I guess this is a feature that most people would envy.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer. 6. What aspect of polar bears does the lecturer mainly discuss? Seven. What does the professor say about the color of the polar bear's fur? Eight. According to the professor, what is the reason some people think the camouflage theory is wrong? Nine. Why does the professor mention the infrared photographs? Listen again to a part of the lecture, then answer the question.
Well, both arguments carry some weight. Although the Arctic winter days are mostly dark, there are several months when polar bears can hunt in some hours of daylight. I kind of fall into the second camp, though. You see, the clear strands allow the sunlight to penetrate through to the black skin.
10. What does the professor mean when she says this?
I kind of fall into the second camp.
Listen again to a part of the lecture, then answer the question.
To cope with this, polar bears have developed the ability to slow their metabolism down by walking slowly for extended periods. During these periods, they draw energy from their stores of fat. I guess this is a feature that most people would envy.
11. What does the professor imply when she says this?
I guess this is a feature that most people would envy.
12 to 17.
Listen to part of a lecture in an art history class.
Let's go back to checking the authenticity of old paintings. Art historians have a hard time with this, particularly with the works of the 17th century Dutch master Rembrandt. There is significant controversy about many of the paintings supposedly done by him. But in the case of a painting titled Portrait of Rembrandt with Gorget, well, an innovative technique was used to determine that it is not actually a Rembrandt original. Before I get into this, though, I should probably explain why Rembrandt is such a problem for art historians. The main issue is that Rembrandt encouraged his students to imitate his work. He would even add finishing touches to their paintings. And many of these imitations were, mistakenly classified as paintings by Rembrandt. To give you an idea of the scale of the problem, there was a time when over 1,000 paintings were thought to be by him. With the development of more accurate verification methods, this number has fallen to about 300, which brings me to Portrait of Rembrandt with Gorget. Until recently, all experts agreed that this was the work of Rembrandt. It had been in the art collection of the Dutch royal family a very long time, so its history of ownership was well established. I mean, there was no reason to doubt its authenticity. But this all changed when the painting was tested using a technology called infrared reflectography. Scanning a painting with infrared light can reveal what lies under the paint, such as the initial sketches made by an artist.
How exactly does this process work? It's hard to believe you can actually see drawings under layers of paint.
Well, it has to do with the qualities of infrared light. It behaves differently than visible light when it encounters a painting. It passes through most colors of paint, so the paint layers appear transparent. Think of visible light going through a window. On the other hand, infrared light sort of bounces off the underlying canvas. This is because the canvas is white, a color that reflects infrared light. Now, any markings drawn on the canvas in black will absorb infrared light, and artists often use black charcoal to sketch on the canvas. The end result is that these markings are easy to see. Here, let me show you a picture of the charcoal drawing under Portrait of Rembrandt with Gorget. As you can see, it is incredibly detailed, and this is actually what led experts to conclude that the painting was done by one of Rembrandt's students. Rembrandt didn't work this way. His sketches were very simple, just rough outlines to position the important elements of the painting.
So then, why do art historians think that this painting was created by one of Rembrandt's students? Couldn't anyone have made it?
That's a good question. It goes back to what I said earlier about Rembrandt encouraging his students to imitate his work. One of the best ways to create a copy of a painting is to use a cartoon. I know what you're thinking. Let me just make clear that I'm not talking about humorous drawings. In the art world, a cartoon is a detailed drawing of an existing painting that can be used to make a new one. And the drawing discovered using infrared reflectography matches very closely with another painting that was definitely done by Rembrandt. So the most likely explanation is that Portrait of Rembrandt with Gorget is a copy of one of Rembrandt's self-portraits. It was probably done by a student who was trying to practice his technique.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer.
12. What is the main topic of the lecture? Why have a lot of paintings been mistakenly classified as the works of Rembrandt? 14. Why does the professor mention the Dutch royal family? 15. In the lecture, the professor describes the qualities of infrared light. Indicate whether each of the following is a quality. (16) What does the professor say about the sketches made by Rembrandt? Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
One of the best ways to create a copy of a painting is to use a cartoon. I know what you're thinking. Let me just make clear that I'm not talking about humorous drawings. In the art world, a cartoon is a detailed drawing of an existing painting that can be used to make a new one.
17. Why does the professor say this?
I know what you're thinking.